kind of fake friendly hum people put on when the food's free and the drama's low. That's when Hannah leaned in, blonde hair falling over her shoulder, that fake smile plastered on like makeup she didn't bother removing anymore. She looked right at me, and said it loud enough for the whole table to hear. "My wish," she said, swirling her wine, "to never touch you again." Then she laughed, soft, but sharp enough to slice through my ribs. No one said a word. Even the waiter froze, holding the Parmesan like he wasn't sure whether to keep grating or run. I didn't flinch, didn't ask what the hell she meant, didn't look around for help, didn't smile to smooth it over. I just nodded, like I was hearing a weather forecast. Cold front coming. Permanent. She went back to scrolling on her phone, like that moment hadn't just become a defining line in the timeline of my life. I paid the check without a word. No cake, no candle, no birthday song. Just the sound of her notifications pinging as we walked to the car. That night, she slid into bed like always, on her side, turned away, scrolling TikTok with the volume low. And I lay there, listening to that artificial laughter, knowing that was the last birthday I'd ever spend beside her. I didn't leave. Not physically. But inside me, the door slammed shut. The next morning, I didn't make her coffee. Didn't fill up her car like I always did. Didn't remind her she had a hair appointment at 2 p.m. She didn't notice. She never noticed the weight of the little things until they were gone. The first message came around noon. "Everything okay?" I left it on read. That night, she came home late. I was at the kitchen table, reading. She paused, like she expected me to say something. She opened the fridge. No takeout. No dinner. Nothing prepared. I had eaten. Alone. 30 minutes earlier. She shut the door quietly. What she didn't know was this. I wasn't angry. Anger still believes there's something to fight for. What I felt was subtraction. I started taking inventory. Emotionally. Financially. Digitally. Subscriptions. Passwords. Bank access. Every detail she took for granted. Quietly adjusted, rerouted, erased. Not revenge. Not spite. Just a man exiting the stage with no applause. She had made a wish. And I was the kind of man who grants wishes. Silently. Completely. Permanently. The shift was subtle. That's how you do it if you want it to last. Not a storm. A drought. The next morning, I left earlier than usual. No reason, really. Just didn't want to be in the same air as her. Didn't want to hear the soft slap of her slippers on hardwood or smell the body lotion she used to wear for me. I sat in my truck outside a Starbucks parking lot, drinking bad coffee and watching people rush through their lives like they were late to matter. She texted around 9 a.m. "Everything okay?" I replied, "Yep." Nothing else. No emoji. No warmth. Just 3 cold letters. That night, she was already home before me. She'd changed into that old blue tank top, the one she used to sleep in when we actually shared a bed, not just space. She was pretending not to be affected. The show must go on. I walked past her without breaking stride. She looked up, paused her scrolling. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She didn't ask where I'd been. That's when I knew it had started. The unraveling. On Tuesday, she made spaghetti. Used to be my favorite. She even lit a Target candle, one of the vanilla ones she saved for date nights. Cute. I walked in, nodded, sat down. I ate slowly. No compliments. No second helping. Just polite silence, and a thank you at the end. Like I was dining at a stranger's table. She reached for my hand when I set my fork down. I pulled it away like I didn't notice. Her eyes flicked up, searching. For what, I don't know. Maybe for the man who used to reach back. He wasn't home. The next morning, she asked if I wanted to go to that outdoor concert on Saturday. Something we talked about a month ago. I told her I had plans. She didn't ask with who. Later that night, I heard her in the bathroom. Makeup bag out. Hair straightener on. She hadn't done that in weeks. But she didn't look at me when she walked past. And I didn't look back. I started small. Canceled the Netflix account she never realized was under my email. She came into the living room later, remote in hand, confused. "Something's wrong with the login," she muttered. I didn't respond. She said it louder. I shrugged. "Try again." She tried. It didn't work. She stared at the screen for a while. But I had already moved on to something else. Reading, scrolling, anything that didn't involve fixing things for someone who only noticed me when things broke. The beauty of distance is that it echoes. At first, you don't hear it. But then the silence gets louder. And eventually, even the strongest performers forget their lines. She didn't know yet. But the real version of me, the man she used to reach for, was gone. Not lost. Not broken. Just deleted. And I wasn't coming back. It started with perfume. The one she used to wear when she actually wanted me to notice. Sweet. Subtle. Strategic. She walked past me one evening in a tight black dress, one I hadn't seen in over a year. Said she was going out with the girls. But the way she lingered by the mirror, adjusting her lipstick, glancing sideways at me for a reaction she wasn't going to get, it wasn't about her friends. She wanted to see if I'd ask questions. If I'd flinch. If I'd care. I didn't. I didn't ask where. I didn't ask who. I just looked up from my phone, nodded once, and went back to reading. She hesitated. One beat too long. Then left. And I didn't check the time she came home. 2 nights later, she came into the bedroom in nothing but lingerie. The kind she used to wear when things were good. When we couldn't keep our hands off each other. When she still wanted to be touched. She stood at the doorway like it was a scene in a movie. Like I was supposed to respond. Like desire could be manipulated back into place by lace and timing. I didn't even blink. I said goodnight. Rolled over. Turned off the light. She stood there in the dark longer than she wanted me to know. Then walked away, not quietly. It wasn't rejection. It was indifference. And it cut deeper. The next morning, she cooked breakfast. Full spread. Eggs. Toast. Bacon. Even my favorite coffee blend. The one from Costco she used to forget to buy. She set it all down, like a peace offering she didn't know was already outdated. I ate. Silently. Thanked her. Got up. Left. No smile. No kiss. No conversation. She stood by the sink, mug in hand, staring at the empty chair. That afternoon, I got a message from her. Miss you. I read it. Didn't reply. 3 hours later. Want to do something tonight? I typed 2 words. Not tonight. She didn't text again. She tried again later in smaller ways. Sat closer on the couch. Brushed against me accidentally. Asked if I wanted to watch one of our old shows together. I let her talk. But my eyes were on my phone. Or the clock. Or anything else. She was reaching for a man who no longer existed. At least, not for her. And the more effort she made, the more obvious it became. She had no idea how far gone I already was. She thought this was a phase. She thought my silence was temporary. What she didn't know, what she couldn't yet see, was that her actions had built this distance. Brick by brick. Year after year. Dismissive glance by dismissive glance. And now she was trapped on the other side. Not because I shut the door, but because I stopped holding it open. She always liked to say she was independent. Claimed she didn't need anyone. That she made her own way. Said it like a badge of honor. Even though every credit card payment, every vacation, every grocery run and oil change came from my account, my work, my planning. She never noticed. Or maybe she did, but assumed the support would always be there. Like gravity. Like Wi-Fi. So I started pulling the wires. Not all at once. That would be too obvious. No, I started small. The Hulu subscription disappeared first. Then Amazon Prime. Then Spotify Premium, gone. Each login failure was met with a confused pause and a vague complaint tossed in my direction. I just shrugged and said nothing. Let her figure it out. I stopped transferring extra money to the joint account. She still had access to the shell, but the core, the real numbers, already moved to a private account she didn't even know existed. Clean. Legal. Quiet. Next was the credit card. She tried using it at Home Depot on a Saturday afternoon. Called me from the parking lot when it got declined. Something's wrong with the card, she said. I told her to try another one. I'll check it later. I never did. She texted again later that day. No reply. By Monday, I'd changed the passwords on every shared financial tool we had. Online banking. Insurance. Even the backup Dropbox folder where we kept scanned copies of all our documents. I didn't lock her out. I just took my keys back. She hadn't noticed yet. Not fully. But she would. When she tried to book that facial at the spa she liked. When she realized the gym membership she never used got canceled. When she tried to check our flight credits from that postponed trip to Denver and saw my name, but not hers, on the account. She'd feel it eventually. The quiet subtraction. She once said love was about showing up. But she stopped showing up years ago. And now I was simply matching energy. One precise move at a time. No raised voices. No arguments. Just the slow, calculated undoing of a man who used to make her world easier, deciding to stop. I watched her from across the room that week. She was scrolling through Pinterest, saving pictures of backyard fire pits and minimalist bedrooms, as if the house we shared was still part of her future. And I knew then what she didn't. That future no longer included her. She hadn't lost me when she said she didn't want my touch. She lost me when she believed I'd still stay after that. I wasn't punishing her. I was preparing. Because the day she noticed what was missing wouldn't be the end. It would be the beginning of everything she took for granted being gone. It was a Thursday evening when the cracks finally reached her. I got home from work and walked into the kitchen. She was already there, arms crossed, standing by the fridge like a student waiting for detention to start. Her posture stiff, her energy defensive. She asked if I'd canceled the cleaning service. I said yes. She stared, processing, then asked why. I told her it didn't make sense to keep paying for things we didn't really need. She started to say something, but stopped. Her lips moved like they were testing which version of her would work best. Sweet, passive, sharp, sarcastic, but none of them landed. I picked up my water bottle from the counter and walked past her. The silence didn't just fill the room. It took over the foundation. She was starting to understand now. Not everything, but enough to know something was wrong. The next morning, she was dressed early. Hair done, makeup light, but perfect. She made breakfast again. Set 2 plates. Coffee, toast, eggs. Just like old times. I nodded, ate, thanked her, and left. She watched me the whole time. But that's the thing about distance. It doesn't announce itself with grand speeches. It spreads like fog. One morning, you just wake up and can't see the person you used to know. She started calling more during the day. Quick questions. Do you need anything from the store? Are we still good for dinner next week with Mark and Ashley? Miss you. I answered, but never more than I had to. Short. Respectful. Hollow. Every reply was a mirror, showing her the version of me she built with years of neglect. That weekend, I drove to Home Depot. Alone. Picked up paint swatches. Studied lighting. Ordered new furniture for the guest room using my private card. Furniture she hadn't seen, hadn't picked. Because that room wouldn't be for guests anymore. That night, she walked into the garage and paused when she saw the empty storage shelf. She asked where the boxes went. I told her I'd started cleaning things out. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't want to. But her eyes gave her away, wide, alert, scanning the shadows of the house we both knew was no longer hers. That's the moment it started shifting for real. The power. She used to hold it by being desired, by being cold, by assuming I'd always come back to her side of the bed, no matter how many nights she turned her back first. But now I moved like I didn't need to be near her at all. And that terrified her more than anger ever could. She was starting to see that this wasn't distance anymore. This was erasure. And I wasn't stopping. The first time someone else noticed, it wasn't because of what I said. It was because I didn't say anything at all. We were at a family dinner, her sister's place. Small gathering. Wine, backyard lights, casual jokes about work and life. The kind of thing we used to enjoy, back when we were still pretending the world between us wasn't fractured. She tried to play the role, held my hand at the table, laughed too loud at stories I wasn't telling, asked me about my week like we hadn't just spent it walking past each other in the same house. I answered simply, briefly, let the words fall like stones. No heat, no tension, just flatness. It was her sister who caught on first. After dinner, she pulled me aside in the hallway. You okay? She asked, eyes searching. I smiled polite. Never been clearer. She didn't press, but I saw it, the question sitting just behind her tongue. What happened to you two? Later that night, Hannah asked the same thing, but not with words. She came into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at me like she was trying to read a language she never bothered learning. You've changed, she finally said. I didn't respond, because she was right, and because the version of me she thought she knew, that man was a ghost now. One she helped bury with every cold shoulder, every sarcastic jab, every withheld moment of intimacy she used as currency. That weekend, I got a text from one of our mutual friends, a guy I hadn't talked to in months. Everything good between you two? Hannah seemed off at brunch. That's when I realized the ripple had left the house. People were noticing her unraveling, not mine. And she knew it. She started overcorrecting, posting couple selfies from months ago with vague captions like, grateful for this man. Suddenly tagging me in posts, as if hashtags could rebuild what her hands had pushed away. I didn't engage, didn't repost, didn't comment. I watched quietly as she tried to edit the narrative, struggling to paint over a wall that was already crumbling. She thought she could cover it with smiles and filters. But real silence? It leaks through everything. And her world had become too quiet to ignore. At Target, I saw her hesitate at checkout. She pulled out the joint card, then switched to her own. She didn't know it, but I had already emptied the joint 1 week ago. She didn't ask, but I saw the flicker. That moment of fear. That question she didn't want answered. How much have I already lost? She still thought she could control this. Still believed I might snap one day and fight for us. But I wasn't fighting anymore. I was documenting her collapse from a distance. She had built a world where I was optional. Now she was living in it. Alone. It was a rainy Tuesday when she finally broke formation. No makeup. No pretense. No curated smiles or filtered photos. Just her, standing in the doorway of our bedroom. Oversized hoodie. Bare feet on cold floor. Clutching a mug she hadn't touched. She asked if I was happy. The question landed like a dull thud between us. I didn't answer right away. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in months, maybe years, she wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to manipulate the narrative or flip the spotlight. She was just exposed. But it didn't matter. Because by then, I didn't believe her vulnerability anymore. It felt like watching an actor forget their lines mid-scene. Awkward, unconvincing, a little too late. She stepped closer. Said she missed me. Said things felt off. I nodded. Yeah, I said. They do. Her eyes watered. But no tears fell. Not yet. She tried to close the distance. Sat beside me on the bed. Our legs barely touching. And for a moment, I think she thought it could work. That proximity could override silence. That the fact we were still under one roof meant something could be saved. But I didn't move toward her. And that was the moment she understood. She wasn't waiting for an answer anymore. She was sitting in one. Later that night, I heard her on the phone with her mom. The bedroom door wasn't closed all the way. Her voice was low, unsure. Not the confident, in-control version she liked to show the world. I don't know what happened, she said. He's here, but he's not here. He doesn't argue. He doesn't even flinch. I don't know if he hates me or if I just don't exist anymore. That's when I knew. She was finally feeling it. The emptiness she'd fed me for years, spoonful by spoonful, excuse by excuse, was now hers to choke on. She had always believed control came from withholding. Now she was starving in a room full of silence. The next morning, she made pancakes. Burned them. I didn't mention it. She sat across from me at the table and stared like she wanted to say something. But I had already left emotionally, long before the first bite. She used to pull away from me like affection was a currency she couldn't afford. Now she was offering it like a refund I didn't want. She asked if I wanted to go away for the weekend. Clear our heads. Try to reconnect. I told her I had plans. She didn't ask what kind, but her lips tightened. She knew. For the first time, she wasn't the one being chosen. She was the one being left on read. Emotionally, spiritually, permanently. And she couldn't rewind. She planned it like it was a rescue mission. That Friday, I came home and smelled something familiar. Chicken marsala. The one dish she used to make back when dinners weren't just fuel, but connection. Candles flickered on the table. Actual candles, not LED ones from Costco. Soft music played in the background, and she had even dressed up. Subtle makeup. That same blue dress she once wore the night I told her I loved her for the first time. She was trying. But not for me. She was trying for the version of me she remembered, before her silence, before the dismissals, before she said she didn't want my touch on my birthday. I walked in, paused, looked at it all. Then I set my keys on the counter, removed my jacket, and sat down like it was any other Friday night. No compliments. No reaction. Just stillness. She brought over the plates, nervously brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She was smiling, but the fear was underneath it. The kind of fear that comes when someone realizes they might be too late, but they try anyway. We ate in silence. She tried small talk. Asked about my work. Said maybe we should take a weekend off, go somewhere quiet. Just us. No distractions. I nodded. Didn't commit. She offered wine. I declined. She poured herself a glass anyway. Halfway through dinner, she asked me to look at her. I did. And in that moment, something shifted. Not in me. I'd already shifted months ago. In her. She saw it. Really saw it. The vacancy. The absence. The finality. Her smile dropped. Her hand, which had been inching toward mine, retreated like it touched heat. She looked down, lips pressed tight, holding something back. I kept eating. She asked if we were okay. I said we were fine. And that word, fine, broke something. Because it's the most terrifying word you can hear when you're begging for restoration. Fine means there's nothing left to fix. After dinner, I stood up, thanked her, and walked upstairs. She stayed behind, staring at the candles like they might give her answers. She didn't come to bed that night. She fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, I came down early. She stirred when she heard me, looked up groggy, makeup smudged. She asked if we could talk. I told her I had to meet someone. She didn't ask who. She already knew the answer. Because the man she was trying to reach, he was gone. And in his place sat a shadow of who he used to be, silent, steady, and already moving on. I didn't have to say anything. By that point, the silence had done all the work for me. She had started to unravel, and I didn't interfere. Not because I wanted her to fall, but because I had stopped being her net a long time ago. People noticed. Her co-workers stopped coming around. She used to host wine nights, always the center of attention, loud and polished. Now, her phone sat still. No pings. No invites. Just long glances at the screen, like she was waiting for something that used to come easily. Even her sister stopped calling as much. I had said nothing to anyone. No story. No complaint. But the absence of energy speaks louder than any accusation. You remove warmth from someone's life, and eventually others feel it too. One night, I heard her on the phone with a friend, crying softly, saying she didn't know what was happening. That I was cold and different. That no matter what she did, she couldn't get a reaction. Not even anger. He doesn't care enough to fight, she whispered. That's when it hit her. Indifference isn't an emotion. It's a funeral with no eulogy. She started staying out later. Sometimes came home with the smell of perfume that wasn't hers. Like she wanted me to ask, to react, to crack. But I didn't even look up from my book. She wasn't cheating anymore. She was begging for proof that she could still make me feel something. And I gave her nothing. On social media, she tried harder. Posted old vacation pictures. Captioned them with things like memories that matter and grateful for growth. But the comments weren't the same. Fewer likes. Generic replies. No one believed it anymore. Because people feel the fracture. Even if you hide the crack with filters and soft lighting, the silence leaks through. One day she came home to find her spare key didn't work. I had changed the locks. She called. I didn't answer. Later, she found me sitting in the backyard. Calm. Present. Reading. She asked why. I told her it was just time for updates. She didn't push. She just nodded slowly and went upstairs. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. Didn't sleep on the couch either. She stayed in the guest room, the one I'd refurnished. She was surrounded by new furniture, but it wasn't hers. She looked like a tenant in a house she used to own. And I was already living a different life, even if the walls hadn't moved. She was still hoping for a rescue. But I was already on the shore, dry, distant, and watching her drift into the storm she made. I waited until the morning light broke through the blinds. She was still asleep in the guest room, or at least pretending to be. I could hear the shift in her breathing when I moved around the house. Slow, hesitant. She was listening, waiting for some sound that meant I'd stayed. But the decision had already been made. I didn't leave a note. That would have implied there was something left to explain. There wasn't. I didn't pack with urgency. I had already done that in stages. Half my things were gone weeks ago. She never noticed. Or maybe she did, and couldn't bring herself to admit what it meant. I walked through the kitchen one last time. The fridge was covered in magnets from places we never went. Trips we always postponed. Dreams she used to romanticize, but never prioritized. Now they just looked like placeholders for a life that never happened. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet you don't fix with music. I opened the front door, stepped outside, and felt nothing. No pain. No regret. No final burst of nostalgia. Just peace. By the time she came downstairs, the driveway was empty. My truck was gone. The keys she once threw at me during an argument were left neatly on the counter. The garage opener? Removed from her car weeks ago. She called twice. I didn't pick up. She sent a message. Can we talk? I read it. Didn't reply. Because what was left to say? She once told me, on my birthday of all days, that her wish was to never touch me again. So I gave her that wish. Fully. Completely. Not just my hands, but my presence, my warmth, my protection, my voice. All of it gone. And the thing is, I didn't leave with anger. I left with clarity. She had been subtracting from me for years, and I had finally done the math. And the sum of it all? 0. Not hate. Not revenge. Just subtraction. Some men leave by slamming the door. Others leave by burning the house down. I just walked out. No explosion. No noise. Because silence.